Hey there everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I'm your resident fantasy therapist and welcome back to my channel. Those of you here for the first time, welcome. My name is Kat Bowser. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also a writer working on my first 2 novels, one the start of a series, one a standalone. And on my channel I like to talk about what I consider to be the heart of writing, and that's the characters. And the heart of the characters is their psychology. So that's the angle I like to take with pretty much everything I talk about on my channel. So this is a video I wanted to do. I actually originally planned to do it last week, a little bit after Father's Day, but things happened and I just didn't get around to it. But last time I talked to you guys about my favorite father figures in fiction, and I want to talk a little bit about the father figures you will meet in my work in progress. Not going to give you guys any major spoilers in here, but just kind of a way for you to kind of meet some of the characters I've been coming up with, and I can't wait for you to meet them fully. So here's a little preview for you. So first and foremost, we have Dory, who his name may change. I'm not entirely set on it yet, but for right now, we're sticking with Dory. He is the father of Suna, and thus the uncle of Ani. His younger brother that's another character. Younger sister was Ani's mother. And when they passed away when Ani was young, he took over caring for Ani until he exiled him and made him a Silmuk. Dory's a jerk. He's one of those characters that he's so despicable, but he's so fun to write. His main thing is he is fiercely religious, and his religion is called the Way of the Father. And in that religion, essentially the head of the clan, the head male of the clan, which is his position, holds all the power. So they make all the decisions. They determine what job you're going to have. They determine to some extent who you're going to marry, how many children you're going to have, what needs to be done on a day-to-day basis. They essentially control your whole life. And Dory, because of this, and also just because of his personality, is a very controlling jerk. He doesn't really have much of an open mind. His idea is, it's my way or the highway, essentially. And that causes the conflict that leads to him exiling Ani before the story begins, because Ani is offered a chance to go train and be a defender. But as far as his uncle's concerned, one, he's not real big on defenders in the first place because he sees them as kind of against their belief system in a way, though not entirely, because he does have some respect for them. But also because he feels that it should be his oldest son who goes to become a defender and not Ani, because Ani is considered to be, he has what they call a diluted bloodline. And what that means essentially is, you're not my son, but you are related to me. So if you have a niece or a nephew, you would say they are part of your diluted bloodline because they are not your direct descendant. So he's going to cause a lot of trouble in the story. But like I said, he's one of those that is despicable but complex and fun to write. So you guys are probably going to hate him, and I really hope you do hate him, because that's kind of what I'm going for. But that is Dory. Then we have Valen, Captain Valen. He is the leader of the defenders, and he is the one who takes Ani in and starts training him. Valen is probably one of my favorite characters in the story, because he's this very he has this kind of noble aura to him. Like, he's very respectful, he has manners. When you think of the stereotypical knight in shining armor, that's kind of what I was going for with Valen. But he does have a temper. It doesn't come out very often. When it does come out, you remember it. But what I didn't want to do with him is, most of the time when you have like a military figure, they're very stoic and not very emotional, that kind of thing. Valen is none of those things. He is very emotional. He views emotion as a strength, and he loves children, which is why he loves to train the new generation, because as he puts it, they have more to teach me than I have to teach them. So he kind of becomes like a father figure to Ani. And their relationship is really fun to write, because Ani doesn't have a lot of confidence, because obviously from what you guys now know of his uncle, that makes total sense. But there is a complication, and that's that Valen also has a son named Aldi. Aldi is one of those characters where he's very spoiled, but he doesn't do things out of malice necessarily, but he does do things that are unpopular and are unkind, but he justifies them with honestly a lot of prejudice that his uncle has been teaching him. So Valen and Aldi have a complicated relationship, because Valen loves his son, obviously. He wants the best for his son. His son wants to be a defender, but as Valen puts it, he does not have the heart for it. And what that means is essentially there's this belief that to be a defender, you have to have at least a certain point of morality to you that is beyond what most people have. And as far as Valen's concerned at the moment, his son does not seem to have it. And this is something that cannot be taught. You either have it or you don't have it. So needless to say, this is some conflict. But Valen does try to be a good father to his son. They don't have a lot in common, because their moral codes are very different. Aldi gets a lot of influence from his uncle, unfortunately. And Valen's wife has some morals that are different from his, but they're close enough that they get along fairly well. So he's trying essentially to fix this bad influence that has occurred on his son, but he also has these other responsibilities he has to do. So he's one of my favorites to write. Let's see, Timma, you don't actually meet his father, at least not in the first book, so I can't tell you guys about him. Zava's father. So Zava is a Dragreen, so they live in the underground cavern city. I don't have a set name for his father yet, and I don't know why. I can't settle on one that I really like yet. So right now in the book, it's just Zava's father in red print until I come up with something. So Zava's father his family's poor. They live around the Great Lake, which is the lake of Shmalun, which is also called, the area around it is also called the Stones. So they live in a very poor area. He works as essentially a quarryman. He goes and digs up minerals and stones and things like that to sell to the upper class. But because of where they're at, there isn't a lot available that makes a lot of profit. So they make enough to essentially feed his family, but they're not much beyond that. He is kind of a traditionalist in that he doesn't necessarily support Zava's interest in history and exploring things, but he's not blocking it either. He kind of takes the viewpoint of, I can see why you're interested in this and why you want to look into it, but by God, be careful. That kind of personality. He also serves as essentially their healer for his family. Working in the quarries, you get injuries, and they have something they call stone breath, which is essentially black lung that they get, and he works with the other quarrymen to essentially use what they have to treat it. They don't have cures for it, but they do have things that can minimize the pain. So that's kind of his role. His wife is much more standoutish. And I'll probably do another video talking about the mother, so I'll talk about her then. So that is Zava's father. Then we have Akiska's father, Kia. I love this character so much. He is one of my favorites to write. He is a Natula, which is the clan that lives up north, and he is extremely openly affectionate, openly emotional, has a very strong accent, not really similar to any of ours, but the closest would probably be a southern twang. So he kind of drops the G's off his words. He has hard A's, that kind of thing. And he is asexual, actually. Just is not interested in it. But he does have a son, Akiska. And this child, as far as he's concerned, started and will end the world. This child is his whole life. But while I would say he does spoil him a little bit, not as much as you would think. Because of the lifestyle they live, he can't really afford to be complacent, so he is stern at times. There are things that Akiska knows he cannot do. But the thing I like about Kia is that he listens. He and Valen are probably the ones that listen the most, and will actually just sit down and just be with the kids and just listen and learn from them. Kia is probably the hardest character to make mad, honestly. He is very difficult to get angry, because he just has kind of this lackadaisical attitude of just, oh, well, we'll just deal with things as we deal with them. But don't you mess with his kid, because he's a hunter. He has been living in this harsh ice environment for years, and he will bring the heat if he has to. He actually has a much bigger part as the story goes on, which I cannot go into here, but suffice to say that he does have an important role to play. Last one I'm going to talk about, and this doesn't cover all my my paternal figures. There are like uncles and stuff that I haven't addressed, but these are the main ones. So this one I want to talk about Nali's uncle, Taryn. So Nali's father is dead. He has unfortunately passed away within the last couple of years, actually. And Nali is a stoneman. His uncle does not live with him, but they live close by. Taryn is, on first glance, you would kind of see him as this stern, like unmovable figure, but if you get to know him, he's actually very humorous. He cracks jokes a lot. He is always wanting to involve his nephew in his life and try and encourage him, because Nali's mother's horrible. And again, I'll go into her on a later video. But Taryn is essentially Nali's safe place. Nali's mother will not mess with Taryn. Taryn has told her in no uncertain terms that if he finds out she is hurting Nali, it will not be pleasant. So right now, they kind of have a distant respect for each other. So Nali is often going to see his uncle. And his uncle is a former soldier. He was a commander of a unit, but not a commander of the whole unit, just a commander of a unit. His uncle has a touch of PTSD. He has more or less gotten the symptoms under control, but they do come up occasionally, and so during that time is when Nali really provides the support to him. So they really kind of help each other. Taryn, I think, probably gives you guys the most lore, because he's very knowledgeable of magic and the way the world is set up and things like that. And so I like to have him and Nali talk about stories and legends, because he's kind of a storyteller. He likes to sing, things like that, and so he's fun to write. He and Nali don't really come in, I think, till like midway, but once they do come in, you guys will spend a lot of time with them. So those are just some of the father figures I have in my stories thus far. I hope you guys found them interesting. As I said, I'll probably do a mother version of this at a later date, but for right now, I think this is good. Thank you guys for chiming in. If you have any comments or suggestions, be sure to leave them below. I will get to them as soon as I can. I upload every Sunday, every Wednesday now, so make sure that you subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss it. And until next time, I hope you guys have a good one.